Hello everyone, let's have more news about the Steelers, but first don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Pundits have left little doubt that the Pittsburgh Steelers will make edge rusher TJ Watt one of the highest paid defenders in the league again with his next contract. How high Watt lands on the highest average annual salary list for defenders, though, remains to be seen. Bleacher Report's James Palmer reported Wednesday that it could be at the very top, even higher than Cleveland Browns' Myles Garrett. I'm hearing there's a chance Watt gets past $40 million per season, which is something we're really keeping an eye on, right? That if he gets that $40 million per year at the age that he is at, Palmer said on his NFL Insider notebook, he has every right to ask for it. I've talked on here a lot about the comparisons between him and Myles Garrett. The numbers are almost identical in every aspect in terms of superlatives and in terms of numbers, and they came in the same draft class. He has the right to try to get that, we'll see. Watt will enter the final season of the 4-year, $112 million extension he signed just ahead of the 2021 NFL campaign. At the time, the deal made Watt the highest paid NFL defender. On that extension, the edge rusher has received an average annual salary of $28 million, but other defenders have blown past that historic deal over the past 4 years. Garrett signed a 4-year, $160 million extension with the Browns this offseason. Garrett's contract will pay him $40 million per season through 2030. Now let's go to another video. Don't forget to leave a like.
Information that you'll hear in just a little bit. Many wondered about the future for Rodgers as you see him out there at camp. He signed that 1-year deal. He said this about his plans to Pat McAfee yesterday.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is it. That's why we just did a 1-year deal. Steelers didn't need to, put any extra years on that or anything. So, this was really about finishing with a lot of love and fun and peace for the career that I've had. I mean, I played 20 freaking years. It's been a long run, and I've enjoyed it. And what better place to finish than in one of the cornerstone franchises of the NFL?
Peace, love, and fun. Somebody make a bumper sticker. Aaron Rodgers' last 3 seasons, including his final in Green Bay, have not been the Rodgers we've known in the past, right? Over his first 14 seasons, he led the NFL in touchdown to interception ratio and was top 10 across the board in many other metrics. The last 3 seasons, though, at or near the bottom of the NFL. Injuries certainly a part of that, maybe age as well. But Graz, what can you tell us about what this means for the Steelers now and their future?
Well, look, the Steelers were always going to be looking for the long-term solution at quarterback next off-season. I guess this sort of officializes that they can do that without worrying about, extricating themselves from Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, he got annoyed at the way the Jets did that this offseason. So, but as he mentioned, it's a 1-year contract. So the Steelers were always planning to look toward the future at quarterback. They know that they have to get this position figured out for the long term, and that 41, soon to be 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers does not do that. So I really think it just sort of formalizes from his end that the Steelers are going to be able to do that without him kicking up any dirt about it.
I mean, if he wanted peace, love, and fun, he could have came to NFL Live. We do it every day on this show. Aaron Rodgers, I would welcome you to it and spar with you. Here's the thing, though. And I thought that they should have started that process. But to Graz's point, and I've seen over time that this is a part of the Steelers starting their quarterback search for the guy of the future. I thought that by having Aaron Rodgers and you winning potentially too many games, you would be sitting in the same position you've been in for a number of years trying to pick a quarterback late in the rounds. But I understand this is going to have to be a big play for a quarterback next year. That is my understanding. That's how I read this situation. If this franchise and organization wants to go into the future and have real opportunities to win playoff games and get back to those titles that they always strive to get. So it makes sense from that point. I just thought the structure of how they would go about getting a quarterback or finding the guy of the future would be different, and it would look different than having Aaron Rodgers, because I call people bat boo-boo crazy if they were to sign Aaron Rodgers. But this is a stopgap for them to get started on that process. I can't say the other word that stands for boo-boo.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Hawk.
Boo-boo sounds better, though.
I agree with you, Marcus. Yeah. And I think when you look at what the Pittsburgh Steelers are trying to do, they got a bunch of picks next year that they can stockpile and say, okay, if we have to move up, we will. But the thing about the Steelers franchise is they always go for it. And you can argue what you feel about Aaron Rodgers, and I'm with you, Marcus, on like, I don't have a very high expectation for him just from what we've seen over the last couple of years. But to hear him speak, it almost makes me feel sympathetic because we've been in that situation before when we feel that the end of our football careers are coming and you start to hear words like peace, love, and fun. This is him trying to, again, get kumbaya with the game that he's played for 30 years and go into an organization where he can say, I don't got to be the head coach. I don't have to be the GM. I don't got to be anybody's mentor. I just want to go play football the same way I came in, worrying about being quarterback and leaving on a peaceful note. And I actually think we'll probably see a better version of him if that is the way that he goes about his business this season.
Hey, Hawk, you know what would have been nice, Hawk? You know what would have been nice? It would have been nice if somebody gave me and you $13 million to kick our ass out of the organization.
I'm still waiting, man. I'll go do it right now.
I was making $5 my last year.
It's not too late. We could do something. We could arrange a deal here.
Hey.
By the way, Raspy,
I was paying the Browns.
Right.
I was paying them from my pocket to make peace with football.
You guys, Raspy Swagoo means one thing. He's been telling June to play defense, right? Is that what we got a little
defense?
Yep, that's what I thought.
Volleyball. This was volleyball,
Oh.
Boogie. This was Miko volleyball.
Uh-oh,
Yeah.
Miko's the youngest one.
cooked,
She better
y'all.
watch out.
I'm tired.
Terry McLaurin, wide receiver for the Washington Commanders. He's looking for a new contract as well with 1 year and about $19 million left on his. This is a situation that the Commanders would love to get figured out ahead of training camp so they can hit the ground running and keep the momentum from last year as Jaden Daniels heads into his second season. But so far, no luck on a new deal for Terry McLaurin.
All right, we'll keep an eye on that. Thanks to Graz. Other news throughout the show coming from Graz. Let's get to the Commanders now and talk a little bit more about Terry McLaurin. Of course, he played a big part in Jaden Daniels' 14-win rookie season. Daniels recorded the third best total QBR by a rookie since ESPN introduced the metric nearly 20 years ago. He's so good. An average QBR is 50. Daniels well above average across the board in year one. A running back, Austin Eckler, was asked about his quarterback's success in year one. Here's what he had to say.
What I've seen from him going into this year, we have the same offensive coordinator. And so bringing that into the mix has now made it so now when we go through OTAs, Jaden's already on it. Like he's beyond, kind of the rookie mistakes, like learning the playbook, getting the play call out slow. Like when you start to see him kind of orchestrating out there, you can tell there's that growth. He's starting to get more comfortable, which allows him to even play mentally faster and make better decisions. And so I think there's going to be even more growth.
Maybe I'm just drinking the Kool-Aid, but I just don't see a second-year slump for Jaden Daniels. Marcus, what are your expectations for Jaden as he heads into year two?
I don't see one either, Boogie. I 100% agree with you. And it's not because usually when we talk about these quarterbacks, and the reason why we talked about C.J. Stroud after his rookie year, because of the processing and how fast they were able to play from their mind. So if he's getting smarter, I expect him to be the best quarterback in the NFC East. And I know Dak Prescott is here in Dallas and has a longer tenure, but we see the things that Jaden Daniels can do off script, which adds to a lot of his ability. But it was funny, I was thinking about last year when we got this question for the show today. We didn't talk about Jaden Daniels' legs. We didn't talk about all of the crazy plays that he made. We talked about his clutch ability to push the football down the field, his ability to move the football with his arm. And those are the things that we got so excited about. And that's the things that we should be excited about coming into the second year. Yes, all of those things are additives, and he does them well. He's fast, breakaway speed. You can run some quarterback run with him. But Jaden Daniels was dominant from the pocket. He was dominant from extending plays and throwing the ball downfield, which should give a lot of people in Washington, D.C., a lot of excitement about his growth and where they can be and potentially be next year.
There's no doubt that there's excitement in Washington, D.C. among the fan base, but also on the team. They believe that Jaden Daniels will continue his upward ascent, and that's what they did this offseason was put pieces around him and make sure that continued. We didn't expect a sophomore slump from C.J. Stroud, but he had a little bit of one because they couldn't protect him. The offensive line fell apart. So what Washington has done is try and do things to help the protection. Ironically, they got Houston's left tackle, so we'll see how that goes. But they also had Deebo Samuel, who will be a helpful factor in building out the short passing game. They didn't do a lot of that throws at or behind the line of scrimmage last year in Washington. That has been a staple of Cliff Kingsbury offenses. Jaden Daniels should be able to execute it better with a receiver like Deebo Samuel. The reference earlier in the comments about the same offensive coordinator, continuity on the coaching staff heading into year 2, so he can keep building with that. All the signs are there for a team that went much farther than anyone expected them to last year to continue that ascent. Remember, Dan Quinn had the Falcons in the Super Bowl in his second year as their head coach. So expectations in Washington are as high as they are anywhere.
Good reminder. Graz, I'm glad you brought up Deebo Samuel, too, because I want to ask Hawk about him. Hawk, with the addition of Deebo, how do you see Cliff Kingsbury utilizing him in the offense?
Yeah, it's going to be an asset to Jaden Daniels because it's going to give them another element that they didn't use last year. To Graz's point, those at the line of scrimmage throws, quick throws out of your hand, turn short throws into long throws. It really becomes almost like an extension of the run game. If Jaden Daniels has that at his disposal to get the ball, get it out of his hands, and get it on the perimeter, and even if Deebo Samuel, like, say what you want about where he is in his yak development in his age, him catching a ball, getting
into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Today on the show, there's a new article that says the Pittsburgh Steelers should trade T.J. Watt for wide receiver Terry McLaurin. I'll break down that at the top of today's show. Then we'll get into a Steelers insider who says that the Pittsburgh Steelers only have one wide receiver target this offseason, and it's make or break when it comes to this target. And then we'll finish up today's show by talking about the media's reaction to Aaron Rodgers' announcement that this is going to be his final NFL season. So make sure you guys stick around to see what the media has been saying about the new Steelers QB1. But Trader Joey, all right, you guys know Trader Joey quite well. He's our Ravens host. He bet me today that we couldn't get 100 new subs on today's show. All right, and I said, I definitely think we can. Joey is here to produce today's video, and he has a little message for Steelers Nation. So, Joey, you don't think that we can do this, can you?
What's up, bitches? I think there's literally 0% chance. If there's one thing I know about Steelers and Steelers fans, they're just good at being mediocre.
Yeah.
And to get 100 subs on video, you got to be great. I don't think you got it in you.
Well, he's wagering, guys, a tortilla slap on tomorrow's Steelers Talk live show. Trader Joey is going to be producing our live show tomorrow. So if we can add 100 new subs on today's show, and it's got to be new subscribers, guys, I'm going to slap the crap out of Trader Joey in the face with a tortilla tomorrow on Steelers Talk Live. It all starts at 5 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow, so make sure you click that subscribe button and join us at 5 p.m. Eastern to see me slap Joey Peterson. All right, so let's get into our first story of the day here, which is a Fox Sports article from David Hellman, who suggests that the Pittsburgh Steelers could trade T.J. Watt in exchange for Commanders wide receiver Terry McLaurin before the start of the season. This is what Hellman had to say in his article. If Washington were to trade Terry McLaurin, they'd be opening some financial wiggle room to add another lucrative player. They could get at least 2, if not 3 years of play out of Watt before they have to worry about extending Jaden Daniels. They definitely need pass rush help. Watt would give Dan Quinn a blue chip player, which he doesn't really have right now on his Commanders defense. Now, it seems like David is making the case for the Commanders to get TJ Watt. And if I'm the Commanders, I definitely want Watt because I think he's the best defensive player in football. So absolutely, I would make this deal if I were the Commanders. But if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, you cannot afford to let go of T.J. Watt. As good as Terry McLaurin is as a receiver, and I think he's a bona fide top 10 receiver in the game, he's a true number 1 alpha wide receiver, and honestly one of the more underrated receivers in the game. And if he's here with DK Metcalf, that's arguably a top 3 wide receiver duo in football. This defense can't survive without TJ Watt on there, guys, because he has been the most dominant defensive player in the National Football League since entering the league back in 2017. He's number 1 in sacks with 108. By the way, that's ahead of Myles Garrett with 102.5. He's number 1 in tackles for loss with 126. He's number 1 in forced fumbles by a wide margin at 33. And then he's number 1 in turnovers forced with 40. Okay, so he has been obviously the most valuable defensive player in football since he entered the National Football League. And what this production from Watt gets the Pittsburgh Steelers defense is dominance. Okay, you take a look at his general impact when he's on the field versus when he's not on the field. The Steelers win less than 10% of their games when TJ Watt doesn't play. They win about 2/3 of their games when he does. And not only does the defense get worse, they give up about a touchdown more when Watt isn't on the field, but the offense gets worse. It's like a 14-point swing when you look at the points per game and opponents' points per game numbers with Watt versus without Watt. That is absolutely massive, the value that one player provides you. Also, the sacks per game and turnovers per game go down pretty significantly as well when Watt isn't on the field. And then if you think that is, outdated or whatever, and you don't think, Watt is still, having that kind of value for the Steelers defense, just last year, after his injury that he suffered versus the Philadelphia Eagles last year, the Steelers didn't win a single football game when they were winning 2/3 of their games with him fully healthy and him dominating the league, and he was the front runner to win Defensive Player of the Year before that injury happened. Again, the points per game and opponents' points per game numbers completely flipped after the injury, and the sacks per game and turnovers per game numbers took a big shift as well. So absolutely, TJ Watt is an absolute must for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year if they want to compete for a Super Bowl championship. He is their most valuable player, and he's the most valuable defensive player in all of football. And honestly, guys, I think Pittsburgh would be much better off this year keeping and paying Watt the number that he wants, and then signing a wide receiver like Amari Cooper versus trading Watt and then getting Terry McLaurin. All right, I think Amari Cooper with DK Metcalf, but you have Watt on the defensive side of the ball would be better than getting rid of Watt and then adding Terry McLaurin to this offense. That's just my personal take. But I absolutely think that is something that could be good for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Mark Caboli from the Pat McAfee show, he's their Steelers correspondent, tends to agree with me, where he says that he thinks Amari Cooper is the only wide receiver the Pittsburgh Steelers could add to their wide receiver room before the start of the NFL season this year, is what Caboli had to say this week. I'm at the point now that if it isn't going to be Amari Cooper, that they are just going to roll with what they have and hope Calvin Austin becomes a dog. I do believe Chris Olave, Keenan Allen, and Gabe Davis are long gone from the Steelers' radar. So Caboli, an insider for the Pittsburgh Steelers, saying this is quite significant here, and it's something to keep your eye on. But I do think Pittsburgh might be willing to add some other wide receiver weapons to their room before the season starts as well. We have seen quite a few reports that the Steelers have inquired about a number of different wide receivers. They made a call to New Orleans about Chris Olave. They also made a call to Green Bay about both Romeo Doubs and Dontavian Wicks. They also made a call to Tampa Bay for Trey Palmer. And then, of course, you had Gabe Davis come in for a free agency visit. So they're certainly showing interest in some of these wide receivers. And, who knows how long this list is. We don't know every single name the Steelers have called about this offseason. And it's certainly possible that the Steelers have shown interest in Amari Cooper. That's not out of the question, but we haven't really heard anything from any credible sources here that the Pittsburgh Steelers have shown any sort of interest in Amari Cooper so far this offseason. Now, I want to make abundantly clear, I would be totally cool and totally on board if the Steelers wanted to go get Amari Cooper, okay? Remember, Aaron Rodgers is a big fan of Amari Cooper's game. He said it back in 2023 on the Pat McAfee show when Amari Cooper was still a legit number one receiver with the Cleveland Browns, how much of a fan he was of his game, and it's no wonder. I mean, Rodgers loves having these big body, route running type of wide receivers. Devontae Adams was that type of guy. Amari Cooper is in that kind of same category of bigger guy with quick feet and really good route running that Rodgers has really thrived with throughout his career. So I think that Rodgers would certainly be on board with bringing in Amari Cooper, but unfortunately it doesn't really seem like the Steelers have shown that much interest in Cooper at this point this offseason. But another possibility here, guys, is that the Pittsburgh Steelers actually feel good with where they are at with their wide receiver room right now, and they are prepared to go into the season with what they have. Right now they have DK Metcalf. I have Roman Wilson listed as the wide receiver 2 here. I'm going to explain why I did that here in just a second. They also have Calvin Austin III, and then Robert Woods is decent depth. Ben Skoranek, really good special teamer and run blocker. And I would personally want to add one more name to this room before the start of the season. But it's, like I said, it's possible that the Steelers like the way that the room is constructed right now. And if that's the case, that tells you that the Pittsburgh Steelers really believe in Roman Wilson. And if this is the case and the Steelers do not add another receiver, Roman is going to have to take a huge leap in year 2. He only had 5 snaps in his rookie season last year. So he's going to have to go from pretty much a non-impact in 2024 to this team's number 2 wide receiver in 2025. And the reason for that is because Calvin Austin III, you guys know how much I love Calvin's game. I think he's one of the more underrated receivers in the game. He's a really good yak threat. I think his hands are underrated. I think he's a really, really good route runner, probably the most underrated route runners in the entire game. And he's got game-breaking speed to take the top off the defense as well. I think he is the perfect wide receiver 3 for this team, but Arthur Smith, the offensive coordinator, it is paramount in his offense for his number 2 receiver to be able to run block. Calvin can't do that, which is why a guy like Van Jefferson, who brought pretty much no upside receiver-wise to the offense, outsnapped Calvin by over 100 snaps in 2024. So the Steelers need somebody to fill that number 2 wide receiver role that's better and a better receiver than Van Jefferson, and Roman Wilson could absolutely be that guy. Now, Roman's not the biggest guy in the world. He's 185 pounds, but he's like 20 pounds heavier than Calvin Austin, and what he was known for at Michigan is not only was he a slot technician and their number 1 receiver on a national championship team with the Wolverines, but he also blocks his ass off, guys. Like, that is what he is known for. He's a dog competitor, and he not only blocks with really good technique, but great physicality. He's a perfect fit for that run blocking type of role here, which is probably why Arthur Smith and the Pittsburgh Steelers felt like this guy has what it takes to be the number 2 receiver in this Steelers offense. So Roman's role this year, guys, what you guys can look for is that when the Steelers go to their 12 personnel packages, so that's 2 tight ends on the field and only 2 receivers on the field, look for Roman to be that second wide receiver out there, not Calvin Austin III, because of the upside Roman brings as a run blocker. And then when they do go to 11 personnel, expect Roman to go into the slot where he is at his best as a wide receiver. And then honestly, Calvin, in my opinion, is best as an outside wide receiver as a Z. So you have a really good setup here. You got DK Metcalf as your true number 1. Then you got Calvin Austin III as the Z, as a speed demon, really good route runner. In your pass-heavy situations, you don't need him to run block, so he's perfect for that role. And then Roman Wilson is in the slot playing that role there, and he is a slot technician. That's what he did at Michigan, and that's what the Steelers are going to want him to do here in Pittsburgh. And essentially what Robert Woods' role is in this Steelers offense, guys, in my opinion, is that he's Roman Wilson insurance. If Roman is not good enough to fill that role this year, the plan is to put Robert Woods out there early in the season on early downs and be that number 2 receiver type.
ESPN insider Adam Schefter provided an update on the Steelers potentially trading for Dolphins cornerback JALEN RAMSEY during his appearance on ESPN Radio's Unsportsmanlike Tuesday Morning. According to Schefter, Ramsey is likely to be traded before the start of NFL training camps. However, he is unlikely to end up in Pittsburgh. The Steelers had been rumored as a potential landing spot for the 3-time first-team All-Pro cornerback. I think Pittsburgh checked in. I'm not so sure that Pittsburgh's going to be the destination, Schefter said. In fact, if I had to guess, I would say Pittsburgh would not be the likely destination. While the Steelers seem unlikely to trade for JALEN RAMSEY, Schefter did provide a couple of potential landing spots. Both teams just so happen to be in Los Angeles. I think when you're trying to figure out a home for JALEN RAMSEY, 2 teams that make sense, and we'll see how it plays out, would both be in Los Angeles, be it the Chargers and or the Rams, Schefter said. I know people have brought up the Rams, and the Rams just continue to float around out there. It would have to work financially for both sides. And I think that that's a possibility still, but I think the Chargers would be a possibility still. I think LA in general is a possibility. So we'll see how that works out. But yeah, I would think at some point we'll get action by the time training camp opens. JALEN RAMSEY just completed his 2nd season with the Dolphins after previously playing for the Jaguars and Rams. The former Florida State star has made the Pro Bowl 7 times. In addition to his 3 first-team All-Pro nods, Ramsey also won a Super Bowl during his time with the Rams. While Schefter expects Ramsey to get traded sometime in the next month, Dolphins star receiver Tyreek Hill is doing what he can to keep the star defensive back in Miami. And you, fan, what do you think about JALEN RAMSEY's situation? Leave your opinion in the comments.